Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the American aid agreement to Israel may be taking a turn for the better. Israel fights to keep weapons away from human rights violators, and Israeli security technology makes a big splash in Paris. I'm Natasha Kirchuk here with the latest news in Israel. Tensions have been high between the United States and Israel following the White House's refusal to provide extra funding for Israel's missile defense system. Now it looks like relations may be taking a turn for the better because the Obama administration says they're prepared to incorporate missile defense funds in a new long-term agreement on military aid for Israel. Avigdor Lieberman is set to make his first visit to Washington as defense minister this Saturday night for talks with his American counterpart Ashton Carter, all in an effort to advance a U.S. military aid deal to Israel. For months, the Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu and American President Barack Obama have been disputing over the scope of the Memorandum of Understanding between the two countries. The current MOU was signed in 2007 and is due to expire in 2018, and the United States has given Israel $30 billion in so-called military financing.
Under this administration, the United States has invested nearly $24 billion in foreign military financing for Israel since 2009. Far more than for any other country, more than at any other previous time in the history of the U.S.-Israel relationship. That commitment amounts to $8.5 million every single day, guaranteeing Israel's qualitative military edge.
Israel has been seeking around $10 billion more for the next decade, with most of the funds going towards missile defense projects that have otherwise been funded ad hoc by the U.S. Congress. In recent years, American lawmakers have given up to $600 million in annual discretionary funds for missile defense, which is well beyond what the Obama administration has wanted to give. Despite disputes over the next round of funding, the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State says the U.S. will be pledging a major amount of financial assistance to Israel in the next 10-year deal.
We're also prepared to sign a new 10-year Memorandum of Understanding that would constitute the largest single pledge of military assistance from the United States to any country in our history, cementing an unparalleled security relationship all the way to 2029.
Jerusalem has hinted that if disputes with the White House persist, they may just wait to finalize the talks with the next U.S. president in hopes of securing better terms. Knesset members from across the political spectrum have come together to propose a new law that would prevent Israeli weapons from reaching the hands of human rights violators around the world. The new legislation would halt arms sales to groups or nations who commit gross human rights violations. Israel's current law on defense exports does not expressly forbid arms sales to human rights violators, but requires considerations regarding the end user of the weapons. Israeli lawmakers say there's no reason that Israel should be arming people who are killing women and children, and the new bill clearly sends this message. Israel wants to ensure that its weapon products are not used by other countries to commit atrocities for belonging to political, ethnic, or religious group, like ethnic cleansing, torture, or rape. If passed, the law will curtail decades-long accusations against Israel for selling weapons and services to human rights violators, including Rwanda and most recently South Sudan. The proposal is nearly identical to one put forth last year by Meritz's Tamar Zandberg. The difference is that this year it has across-the-board support. Only three parties, United Toward Judaism, Shas, and Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman's Yisrael Beitenu party are not sponsoring the bill. Even if the bill passes, roadblocks could exist ahead for signing it into law. It still has to be approved by the Ministerial Committee for Legislation and then go back to Knesset for further ratification. Israeli authorities have reignited controversy by authorizing the construction of a 3-story building for Jewish residents in the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Silwan. Nowadays, the area adjacent to the Old City is predominantly home to Arabs, after its large Jewish community was expelled under Jordanian control between 1948 and 1967. After the city's reunification under Israeli sovereignty, there have been efforts by several organizations to reclaim property under Jewish ownership in the 19th century. This latest prospective project is being sponsored by the private Ateret Chochanim group.
We're very happy about the decision today at the municipality that in addition to the 21 families already living in the old Yemenite village, that approval has been given for a building in the old Yemenite village of Shiloach. In many ways, this is correcting a wrong of the past. It's a historical justice, basically. Jews are kicked out, and today Jews are not just returning, but the Jewish sovereign body is giving the approvals to build a building in this old Yemenite village of Shiloach, overlooking the old city and the city of David, something very special.
Palestinians and their supporters, however, want to claim East Jerusalem for their future capital, and fear a further Jewish presence will only make dreams of statehood even less viable.
This policy, which is intended, of course, at promoting Israeli sovereignty over occupied East Jerusalem, has a terrible toll on the Palestinian population of Silwan. We know of dozens of families that are facing eviction. Hundreds of people are living on in a daily reality of clashes and conflict. And of course, if the Israeli government still has any kind of commitment to a two-state outcome, then clearly it's not demonstrated it by promoting this building plan.
Iyad al-Rajabi, who lives in Silwan, complained that he and other Arab villagers have been struggling for decades to acquire their own permits to build.
مستوطنين مقدمين ترخيص بعرفش كم سكني عندنا بالحاره بنفس المنطقه هون فمصدقين ومعطينهم يعني احنا يعني على اي اساس يعني مش عارف احنا احنا عندنا 30 سنه بنقالب بدنا ناخذ رخصه بدنا نقيم بدنا نحط ومش انا لحالي وكل البلد تقريبا بتقدر تجمع انت كل البلد تشوف انه مش حدا معاه رخصه فيش حدا قادر يجيب رخصه.
Senior PLO officials have also slammed the plan as an attempt to deliberately alter the demographic reality of the historic city. Yet many pro-settlement groups claim that argument is false, since hundreds of Jews already live among the 50,000 Palestinians in the Silwan neighborhood and are protected by Israeli security forces. Nuclear disarmament continues to be one of the most urgent security problems plaguing the world. And some claim that relations between Russia and the West have sunk to levels that could result in a nuclear disaster. ILTV reporter Steve Leibowitz headed to the International Forum on Preventing Nuclear Catastrophe in Amsterdam to see how global leaders are tackling the issue. And he sat down with forum-member Dr. Tariq Raouf to learn more.
There are nearly 2,000 nuclear weapons that are on alert status, ready to be fired at a moment's notice. So the American president or the Russian president could get a report from their defense ministries that they have detected a missile attack from the other side, and each of these presidents would have about 10 minutes or so to make the decision whether or not to retaliate. And now with computer spoofing and so on, as the former British Defense Minister Des Brown said, this danger has become even more extreme, and there is a lot more pressure on presidents and also the defense forces to be able to identify and to validate the threat that requires a response.
Do you agree with the assessment that we could be heading back towards a Cold War situation between Russia and the United States, maybe because of the leaders with Putin and perhaps Donald Trump?
Well, I would say that we're already in a Cold War, particularly since the Crimea issue. For the first time ever since the United States and the Soviet Union started talking about nuclear arms control in the mid-1960s, we do not have direct dialogue between Washington and Moscow. The last treaty that was signed under President Obama was in 2010. So we haven't had talk about a follow-on treaty. So this is very dangerous. We need the two biggest possessors of nuclear weapons to be talking about the next steps. So here you have two different positions. President Obama has offered one more round of nuclear arms reductions to Russia to go down from 1,550 nuclear weapons to 1,000 nuclear weapons. But the Russian position now is that they want to also talk about what they believe is the imbalance of conventional military forces in Europe. And they also want to include other states possessing nuclear weapons, notably China. And then add to mix the differences over Crimea and the cooling of political relations. And it's a bad situation. And it's sort of very ironic that President Obama, who came into office with his famous Prague speech, promising a nuclear weapon-free world, will leave office signing a $1 trillion nuclear modernization program for the U.S., which will mean we will have U.S. nuclear weapons at least until the end of this century.
We in Israel have thought about the main risk really being from Iranian nuclear weapons. An agreement was reached almost a year ago in order to deal with that situation. Do you think that that made the world a safer place or not so much?
Absolutely. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was signed in Vienna on the 14th of July last year effectively puts very strict restraints on the Iranian nuclear program. Iran has already dismantled its reactor that had the potential to produce plutonium. The nearly 2,000 kilograms of enriched uranium has been diluted and most of it has been moved out. So as President Obama said, 4 possible paths to an Iranian nuclear weapon have been blocked. Iran is under the most strict nuclear verification implemented by the International Atomic Energy Agency ever. There is a 24-hour presence of IAEA inspectors in Iran. So it is virtually impossible for Iran to divert nuclear material from Natanz or from Fordow to make a nuclear weapon. The missile issue was not part of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and that is the area where Israelis feel concerned. And Iran has recently tested some missiles as well. But as if we are to believe the Iranian Foreign Minister Jawad Zarif, he says that Iran has not fought a war with another country or attacked another country for hundreds of years, and that they don't threaten Israel. That's their point of view.
This week, one of the largest and most important defense and security exhibitions is being held in Paris, and Israel will be taking a major part in it. Over 29 Israeli companies will be displaying their technologies to help the world. The Eurosatori Defense Show opened on Monday, just a day after a heavily armed terrorist opened fire on a nightclub in Florida and killed 50 people. The exposition features land and air defense equipment from across the globe, representing 120 different countries. Israel will be featuring technologies in multiple fields, from robotics to unmanned aircraft systems to armored vehicles. The Jewish state has long been a leader in defense technology since the country has faced so many security threats. While many people are applauding the exhibit for providing more safety to the world, some are protesting what they call an overly armed world.
It's important for me because I work in conflict areas where I see the problems of armaments, I see the problems of false security. Security is important. I understand that. People need to feel secure. But there are other ways of working, and I work a lot with refugees who have suffered because of armaments, things that are being sold here. So I do know that there are alternatives.
There have been major calls around the world for gun reform, especially in the United States and France, which have experienced multiple gun attacks in the past couple of years. Yet the exhibition is advocating for the world to come together and share security technology to combat future attacks. Some of the Israeli companies featured at the event include Elbit Systems Limited, Israel Aerospace Industries, and Rafael Advanced Defense Systems. We have a story for you. A Jewish math professor from Brooklyn is generating headlines for announcing his willingness to donate sperm free of charge to women who can't afford the traditional route to becoming mothers. Quite a few have taken him up on the offer, and over the last 18 years, he's sired 22 children who live all over the United States and even right here in Israel. The 40-year-old academic was raised in an Orthodox Jewish family with 6 siblings. He says he just loves seeing how happy the moms and the kids are, and that it's a gift that keeps on giving. Nagel has been present for some of the deliveries, and he even occasionally babysits and goes to the kids' birthday parties. The New York Post reports that Nagel delivers his generous contributions both the old-fashioned way through intercourse, as well as by giving samples of his genetic matter in a cup. You guys won't believe this. He's even admitted to having produced sperm while in the men's room at a Target retail chain, because he said it wasn't time-consuming and he needed to go to the store anyway. He attributes his success to the free service and a high sperm count, in addition to his good looks and attractive personality. I guess we can say good for him. This summer marks the 10th anniversary of the Lebanon War in 2006, what many consider to be Israel's last biggest war. ILTV's Lara Frazinski headed to a special conference at the Bar-Ilan University to see what Israeli leaders have learned from the tragic event and how their lessons are being used to achieve a brighter future for Israel.
This summer, Israel marks 10 years since the Second Lebanon War. We're here in Bar-Ilan University, where government, military and academy officials came to discuss the lessons learned.
The conference we have got today concerning the Second Lebanese War, you can see that it's arranged on one hand by the university. It's the Department for the Studies of the Middle East. And on the other hand, the army.
The Second Lebanon War was Israel's latest large-scale war and is still being analyzed by experts from all fields, especially in the IDF.
Every unit, every formation has all the time to see how can we do it better next time, and that's actually what we try to bring up on such a conference.
Bar-Ilan University invited various Israeli public figures as well. One of them was the former Minister of Foreign Affairs during the Second Lebanon War, member of Knesset Tzipi Livni, who emphasized the importance of U.S.-Israeli relations.
אין מבצע צבאי שלא מתחיל, ממשיך ונגמר במערכת יחסים הדוקה עם ארצות הברית. זה קורה גם בכל מבצע צבאי בעזה, מהם אנחנו מקבלים את מרחב הפעולה בלי שמפסיקים אותנו באמצע.
One of the major challenges agreed upon was the difficulty of combating a terror organization, Hezbollah, and not the state of Lebanon.
קשה מאוד להשיג תודעת ניצחון או תמונת ניצחון ממלחמה שאתה מגדיר אותה מלכתחילה מול ארגון טרור ולא מול מדינה.
כי יש פה ארגון מסודר יותר, כמעט ממשלתי, שמסוגל לקבל החלטות כמעט כמו מדינה, ולכן האיום הוא הרבה יותר מורכב מאשר עוד ארגון טרור קיקיוני כזה או אחר.
After a decade, Hezbollah remains the biggest threat in north of Israel. While lessons are being learned, Israel has to remain strong in combating terror.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. The weather is getting warmer and warmer each day, and we all know what that means. It's kites, which means summer in Hebrew. In Israel, kites mean sun, sun, and some more sun. But luckily over here we have a long coastline of Mediterranean beaches to visit. So despite the sweltering heat, for most Israelis, kites mean sea, sand, and lots of fun. Here's the bottom line. If you're looking for a good vacation spot this kites, the Holy Land is a place to be. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Get ready for a hot weekend because Friday is expected to be sunny with a high of 85 degrees. The heat should continue into Saturday with a high of 88, so don't forget to carry around some sunscreen. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.87 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our weekend show tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you later.